Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the a little bit of delay. I was finalizing the adjustments for our transmission online, our online viewership. Hopefully, everyone, if there's anyone online, the sound is there, is fine. And tonight, I'm going to be here the whole night with you guys. So bear with me. I hope you don't get too tired of myself, because I know that you're already tired, but, don't get too tired. As we usually do, today is our second Monday of the month. This is our second Monday of September. We are already in September, right? We're getting close to the fall now. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the book Our Daily Bread, message 167. Last month we had our dear Simone, right? Last month. Oh, you're going to talk to? Oh, that's good. Nice. That's so nice. I didn't know that you were. Did you do it last month? Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, Nancy called you. Oh, that's so great. That's awesome. If you're prepared, it's much better. No. So people get less tired, right? So she's gonna be here, and she spoke so eloquently last time. So it will be great. So before that, let's do our initial prayer, and then we invite her, and then she will be able to talk to us and give us her message. So with this, let's raise even higher, even deeper our thoughts to reach our dear Father, our Mother, that big friend of ours, our Creator, the one that gives, and will always give us life. Dear God, thank you for the blessings that we keep receiving on our daily lives. May these blessings fill our souls, our minds, and our lives with your love and your passion for living and for doing good to ourselves and to others. May your blessings fill our night, fill all the ones that are here, the incarnated, and also the ones that we don't see, but that we know that are here surrounding us. May your love be with us now and forever. So be it. So let's invite Simone so that she can talk to us a little bit. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I hope my accent's not too heavy. I'll do my best. So as Mackenzie was telling us, we are going to read a beautiful message of number 167 from the book Our Daily Bread by the Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier. And the name of the message is Understanding. And it starts like this. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Paul is the one that said that, and you can find it in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. When we refer to the problem of spiritual transformation, the community of students of the gospel agrees with us as to its necessity, but not all of them do seem to have perfect comprehension of the matter. Invariably, they all desire the modification, but the majority only aspires to a classified conventional change. Those that have been less fortunate monetarily seek to scale the control of material possibilities. The holders of the humble tasks fight over the higher positions, and in a disconcerting crescendo, almost all intend the improper transformation of the opportunities which suit them, submerging into a disquieting disorder. The indispensable renovation is not that of an exterior nature. The devoted Christian will be transformed not by external mannerism, but by the understanding, endowing his own mind with renewed light in new concepts. Just as any earthly position requires the sincere application by any dedicated student, the process of mental improvement requires constant effort in both rightness and in knowledge. Even here, it is important to recognize that discipline will be a decisive factor. Do not become hardened, therefore, by the false notions that have jeopardized you in the past. Try to consider the structure of your reasoning today before the circumstances that surround you. Question yourself as to what you gained in the gospel in order to analyze correctly this or that occurrence in your path. Do this, and the Lord's blessings will assist you in the illuminating reply to yourself. Ay, ay. Emmanuel, always giving me a slap on the face, right? Reminding us, because after so long, Jesus was here 2000 something years ago, and we are still failing. We still don't understand what the true transformation is all about. And he's saying that most of us Christians, we understand, we look at the world and we see poverty, we see violence, we see careless people everywhere. And we do understand the need of a transformation. But I think that, first of all, we all look and we do believe and agree that the transformation is needed, but always the other one needs to change. The change, we never look inside ourselves to search for this change. And then when we do, we get all wrong sometimes, because we are not here to transform just our material physical experience. We are here to grow in spirit. So as the Hebrews believed that the more money you had, the more right things you were doing about your life. And I think that somehow, maybe unconsciously, that still happens. That if you are poor, financially speaking, a lot of people think about themselves being less because of that. I come from a very poor family. Well, I grew up with my mother being very poor. But on the other hand, my father was pretty well. He was kind of rich, especially his parents. So I grew up really seeing both sides very close up. And it scared me, because to watch the poor people, the way they used to behave in front of my grandparents and my father, they humiliated themselves. They believed they were less. But my grandparents also believed that they were more because they had money. So this is not what Emmanuel is talking about. He's talking about being better, being a better person, loving, being compassionate, being kind. But also he talks about knowledge, right? And that's, there is a part here that I liked a lot too, that a lot of times, because we are so confused about this growth, about this change that is needed, and, like sometimes we don't know what to do. And then it says, sometimes your humble position gives you opportunities that suit you. So, really quickly, I ask just to give another example of myself. When I was very little, I believed and I knew that I had one purpose in life. Not that I didn't have others, but I was 100% sure that I was born to be a mom. I grew up in a very chauvinistic family, and I rebelled pretty bad about that. So, growing up, I was a feminist. Today, I'm not anymore because I studied more, I've learned more, and I'm neither. I'm just a person when it comes to that. Because I came to understand, so when I was a feminist, I used to think that doing the things at home, it was less than what the men were doing. I saw it as less because everybody treated as less. And I didn't want that for myself. So I rebelled against that and I went to college and I was like, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be more than that. Yeah. I went to college to learn how to be a mother. Today I know. Then I didn't. But today, because I studied everything I do at home, I learned in college. I learned how to sew, I learned how to cook, but broader. So I learned about nutrition in large scale. I learned about sewing in large scale. I learned interior design. I learned children's psychology. I learned about economy. And I didn't know that I was learning that just to be a mom. I guess I wasn't a very good mom in the past. That's why I had such a. So it says the opportunities that suit them. I was supposed to be a mom, and I believed that being a mom was less because I would be home cooking and cleaning and taking care of my family, and that people would look at me like that. And I didn't want it. But God, thank you so much. I took that opportunity and I invested everything I had in it. And I understood that the real transformation was first with myself, but the success of a mother is to raise good people. And that's what I focused on. Good and healthy people. I tried to go out there and work so many times. Nothing worked. Imagine. So what suits me is to be a mom, not to make money right now. And I had to understand that. And Emmanuel comes to invite us to do that. Like, how does the gospel speak to you? What did you gain with it? What are the things you have learned that before you react to a situation quickly, you can put little things together from what you've learned with the gospel before you act on something, just as a reaction. So he's inviting us to do this. And he talks about discipline. Orai e vigiai. Oops. Pray and watch. Discipline. How long did it take for us to learn to walk? How long did it take for us to learn to speak? What about speaking another language? Discipline, repetition. So, and we're going to fall, we're going to make mistakes. Let's get up and keep going, right? So I think that the biggest message here is, let's really look within. And, this small message, and I have an entire night to talk here, Mackenzie, but I will just end right now. Just with one little thing that I thought was nice, because never before it was so urgent for us to be aware of this transformation that we need. And I thought this was fascinating. Maybe I have mentioned this before, but there is a scientific study done with, first they did with birds. They have done it with electrons. With the electron, they put two different, they split the electron and then they put them completely different places, very far away. Once that you tickle this one, this other one will react to show how they're connected. Then the next one that I want to exemplify is with birds, okay? The birds in one place learns how to use a tool, for example, to find food. Without a physical connection, around the same time that this bird here learned, the birds of the same species all across the world will also be doing the same thing. So it seems that this energy that connects everything, and in this case, something more specific, when they are, how do you say mônada em inglês? Mesma coisa? Monad? Okay, like a group, right? They're the same or very similar. So that happened with the electron, that happened with the bird. They found other animals that also showed a very similar way of learning things. Imagine us. We know that every year at the Olympics, someone is breaking a record. And then what happens next year? It happens again. It happens again. It's almost like once one does it, the other one that is similar kind of like gets that knowledge as well. What I'm trying to say is that this transformation is urgent, and I do believe, and I see many more people talking about it. People everywhere are talking about this transformation right now. Not only us spiritists. In the American community, you sit with the manicure to talk about it, and they know. They can feel, they understand, they can talk to me. And why did I say manicure? Of course not to make them any less than anything. I'm just saying that a person that is not, studying it like we are, but it's expanding. The knowledge of this need of transformation is just expanding. And I honestly hope that we can all work harder to come back here next time, right? So thank you very much. That's all I had for tonight.
Thank you, Simone. Understanding. And that's a very interesting, actually, as a title of the of the message because, in some degree, it has to do with understanding of what we're going to talk about tonight. We are still following the Gospel according to Spiritism. We are kind of halfway through right now. So tonight we're still on chapter 14, which is honor your father and your mother. So last month we talked a little bit about the Ten Commandments, and we talked about the commandment that says honor your father and your mother. And we are going forward on that discussion. And tonight we really need to put the hat of understanding, as the title of the message was. Because to some people, and I've heard this from a few different people, um, even Kardec, in this same book, on chapter 23, he has this chapter, which is still far away to get to it, but today maybe we get a little hint of what he does on chapter 23, which is strange moral or strange ethics. Because those are saying in this chapter 23, what Kardec does is he gets passages from what Jesus taught us, what Jesus said, that are kind of weird, that are strange, that if you really don't stop and think and probe and try to really go into deep understanding, it might be that we will ask, was it him that said this? Was it really him? Is this really from Jesus? So in this item that we're going to talk tonight about, we're going to read a little bit here. That we have some people actually questioning this, and even Kardec, in the comments that he makes, he says that, and I'm going to read a quote from him further down. The topic for tonight is, who is my mother and who are my brothers? In Mark and Matthew, in two of the Gospels, they recount, not exactly the same way, but they recount this story where Jesus asks this question. But I'm going to read it because I think it's interesting for us to read from the Bible, or from what Kardec copied here from the Bible. So this is, as he marks, as he notes here at the bottom, he says that this is in Mark chapter 3, verses 20 and 21, and then in 31 and 35, and then in Matthew from verses 46 to 50 on chapter number 12. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it slowly and stop a little bit so that we can kind of try to understand what's the problem with what Jesus is teaching us here, and how do we come about to understand, and what Kardec says about it, and how do we think about it. And keep in mind what Simone said about understanding. That's what we will have to get to in a certain sense of it. So then the writer of the gospel, takes note, and he says, then a multitude, a group of people, gathered again, so that they could not so much as eat bread. So there was so many people around that they couldn't even eat bread anymore. Apparently, there was so much people and so little food that they could not. And when his family heard of it, they went out to take charge of Jesus, for they said, he is out of his mind. What the person that's taking note here is saying to us is, there was a group of people that gathered again around Jesus, and they heard that there was so many people that was no food anymore. So they got like outraged because, and they are, who are they? They are supposedly the mother and the brothers of Jesus. And they said, Oh, here it comes again. Here comes Jesus and a lot of people around him. Can you imagine how they would say? So Jesus and then a lot of people around Jesus. There's not enough food, not enough water. Here he comes again. That boy is, why isn't his father here with could slap him because he's doing so that's how they presented it because he notes it here, he writes it, he is out of his mind. So he's saying that Jesus is crazy. This boy is crazy. What is he doing? Why is he doing this? Oh, there's not a boy anymore, right? He's about probably around 30. But to a father and to a mother, right? They're always boys and girls, right? It doesn't matter how old they are. I always remember this interview in Brazilian television a while ago. So comes this father and this father and the son to be interviewed. The father was 92 years old, whatever it was, and the son was 77, whatever 72, 70, whatever the number was. And then the interviewer is talking to the father, and then when he starts to answer the question, the son, right, interrupts and then says, "No, it's not like this," or something to the sorts of. And then the father looks at him and say, "Boy, don't interrupt me." Right? A 72-year-old man is being called a boy by his father of 92. So it doesn't matter how old you are, right? They're always going to be a boy. So Jesus was a boy to his mother, right? So he probably, this boy, he's out of his mind. So they didn't put it here, but I'm just, right? So he is out of his mind. So that's where it starts. Then he continues and he says, then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. So here comes the the evangelist or Matthew or Mark, and then he's, I don't know, he's recounting the story, he's recounting the tale, but he knows and he uses these words as they are brothers and mother. He's not using like a generic word of any kind. Maybe brother could be mistaken, but mother cannot be mistaken. So we don't really know, and we cannot be 100% sure. We were not there. There was no camera. There was no, right, Instagram or right TikTok filming stuff. So we cannot see it, but we have to take the words for it. So they arrive, the brothers and the mother of Jesus, they get there standing outside. They sent someone to call him. So apparently there was so much people around Jesus, they could not get to Jesus. Right? So they sent someone, probably sent a word and say, hey, say this. And then the other person, right? And then it gets to Jesus. So it says, a crowd was sitting around him and they told him, hey, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. So if it was today, people would get the microphone, Jesus, Jesus, your mother and your brothers, right? But they couldn't do that, right? So they sent someone to talk to him. So your mother and your brothers are outside looking for you. And then Jesus says, and that's where it comes, the question. In answer, he replied, saying, who is my mother and my brothers? And who, if I make it false, and who is my mother and who are my brothers? And looking about him, so then he looks around and he says, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does God's will is my brother and my sister and my mother. And then that's where this text ends. Why is this weird? Why could this be at the strange morals? Because, I mean, as the joke goes, right? We are certain who is my mother. Everybody here is certain who is their mother. But no one really knows who are our fathers, right? We today we can, because DNA, and of course, if you look at Fabrizio's face and look at his father's face, we'll see that he is his father's son. But I mean, that there, of course, there are these things. But what I want to say is, how can Jesus, being who he was or who he is, ask this question: who is my mother and who are my brothers? As if, and then some, I've heard some people, so I would, some people say, right, I would never do this or say this because, my mother, I know who my mother is and I know who my brother is. And Jesus should never have said that. I've heard this a few times in some conversations. And to a certain degree, that is true, right? If you say, hey, your mother is outside, you're never going to say, who is my mother? Usually we will say, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to talk to my mother. That's usually what we would say because of out of respect, right? But that's not how Jesus does. So here where it starts to come the understanding part of it. We have to put ourselves in the place of someone who is trying to teach something to someone. And this is the first step that we have to get into. If we are in a situation where we are teaching and we use every little thing that happens to me to teach something, I will get that opportunity and use that opportunity to teach something. That's one thing. We can go through many, many different things. I'm just gonna venture from my mind a few things here. If we come to a room or to a place and we hear someone talking, we might tend, or we might want to say that I know that person because she said that. I know that person because she used that word. I know that person because she was doing this. Do I know that person because I know I saw her doing something? Do I really know that person? Do I really know the person because she used one word in one specific situation? No, we don't. But isn't this something that we usually do in a certain way? That we hear something, that we heard that someone said, that we read one statement, that we read instead of reading the full story, we read only the first like two lines, and we already know the whole story. This is what we do, and I'm not saying that we do, right? I'm saying that we do, because when we are not really paying attention, as Simone was saying, is if we are not, praying and being vigilant, and we are just being ourselves, that's what we do, because we jump into conclusions very quickly. And then if we have time enough time to stop and say, hey, wait a minute, let's not judge so quickly, then we might come back and say, oh, I almost. But that's usually how we do it. So in this situation, we don't know what Jesus said after this. We don't know why he chose this moment to teach this. We don't know a lot of things. The only thing that we need to try to understand, that's where Kardec starts to get to us here, is that he says, if we take only this part of what Jesus is saying and remove everything else, then we might be able to judge him because we don't know the rest of the story. But we know his behavior in so many other places. We know how he does in so many other places. We know what he does to people, what he does with people, how much he cares about everybody. So why wouldn't he care about his brothers and his mother? So there must be some way that we need to look at this point, at what he's trying to teach us here, and ask ourselves, what is he trying to teach? What are we missing from what he is saying at first glance? Not saying that we don't already know what he's trying to say. We probably do. We probably heard this story so many times. We probably have already thought about this. But this, to me, it's a very teachable moment in the sense of us to stop before we go further with our own understanding, our limited understanding. We have to jump. We have to go higher. We have to bring ourselves into a high standard, into a higher standard, so that we can learn how to see different things through different perspectives. There are a few movies that I find very interesting. I didn't watch many movies like this, but there's a movie that I'm not going to remember the name right now. But it's very interesting because it's told from the perspective of 5 or 6 different people. And you start watching from the perspective of one person, then you go to another person and you see the same things happening, but you don't know what was happening. So we judge that this was happening because of this. All of a sudden it said, oh, now what I was thinking is completely wrong. And then we go to the other one, and because we don't have the full picture. And that's so interesting for us, for our own reflection. And this is not even a great movie, at least the one that I remember, but it's a good movie. It's an interesting movie. But this thing of just going and watching things from different perspectives made me and makes me think about, how can I judge other people if I'm not in their skin, if I'm not wearing their shoes, if I'm not in their situation? But we do it all the time. So we have to really, usually, or if we have enough time to do it, just step back and try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Otherwise, we will be judging everybody from where? From my point of view, from where I'm standing. I say this here quite often. Uh, if I am here as I am right now, and I ask myself, there's a task for every one of us. The task is the following: get a piece of paper and draw or write something about this room from where you are sitting. You are not allowed to draw anything else other than from here to the front of you. Everybody, not only because of the position that we are, but because of how I see the world, we will write something completely different from one another. We will find points that are similar, but we will find points that, okay, why didn't you show this in your writing? Why didn't you draw this? Why didn't you pick this to show? Oh, why did you go into so much detail about that thing? Because that's what caught my eye. I remember one day, right? I was I don't even know how I can remember, because such a long time ago. It was such a, like, but I still remember that. So we were talking. There was a spiritist meeting, and we were talking, and I don't remember. We were talking about just like what Hamlet says, to be or not to be. But we were talking about being, and well, in Portuguese we have ser and we have estar, right? So we have to be and to be in different ways, and then we have the idea of also having. So it's to be and to have, or right. So we were talking and discussing this, and for whatever reason, one of the examples that I use that I can remember right very vividly, because we were talking a little bit about how do I breathe, and how do I know that the other person is breathing? So I have lungs, but there are some animals that don't have lungs. And I said, okay, one day I had just finished gone to the bathroom. So I'm going to flush the toilet. And then as I'm about to flush the toilet, I see an ant. And the ant is right there in the water. And I look at the ant, and the ant looks back at me. No, I didn't see if the ant looked back at me, but the ant was right there, right? I was not like, but the ant was right there. So I look at the ant, and then I ask myself, how does that ant breathe? That was a real question. For whatever reason, in my mind, that was the question. And I looked at the ant and I said, does the ant have tiny lungs? Now that's a question for you, because you will have this question in your mind, because an ant doesn't have lungs as we do. So how does an ant breathe? And then I asked the question, right? And people laughed, and because of the whole situation, which I also find it funny, because why would that question pop in my mind? Am I going nuts? I am, but I mean, so that's and then then people started looking at me, and then we laughed and finished. And then it finished. I think I was like, I don't know, maybe 19 or 20 at the time. So we were in a group of young people talking, and one girl came after that, and he looks at me and he says, she said, he says, no, she says, and then she looks at me and she says, uh, you know, I had never thought that coming here would make me think so much about things that I didn't even know it was possible to think about. Something in that sorts. And I said, yeah, I mean, that's what Spiritism does to me. If it does to you, I don't know, but that's what Spiritism does to me. It makes me think about things. It makes me question things. It makes me try to see things from a different perspective and look at life from a different point of view, because there's not only my point of view, there's your point of view. And everything is important for us to gather together, and we will see that, okay, this complements this. Maybe what I'm going to say is similar to what you said, but the experiences that we are having together can make me see things from a different way, or from a different point of view, and make me see more clear what's going on. So when a child, or a person that has not yet get to a point of a certain maturity, and then we say the following sentence: I know what you're talking about. And the person will usually say, no, you don't. And it might be true that I really don't know. And so, but if we go and really think about this, I don't know nothing about anything, because I never, even though I am right here, right now, Simone was right here, like a few minutes ago. She was right here. So I can tell, Simone, I know what you're talking about when you talk about when you come to the front and then you feel a little anxious, you don't know what's going to happen. I know what you're talking about. I cannot say that, because her experiences are different than my experience. However, we have stuff in common. I may not know entirely what she feels, but I know the majority of points that she felt, especially if I lived through what she's living now for 15, 20, 30 years. One day, I had to come here, just like she did last week or last month, for the first time. One day, I had to be here for the first time. It was a long time ago, but I had to be here once. And it was scary, and we didn't know, I didn't know what was going to happen. So, oh, it's the same for her? No, it's not exactly the same, but we are in a similar situation, so I can relate, I can empathize, I can feel for her, I can have the same kind of idea. But if I am in a defensive mode and I say, I know what you're doing, I know what you're feeling, the person might say, no, you have no idea, and will be angry with me. The person has their rights. The person has its own right to say that. And if I already know enough, I will understand where she or he is coming from. So I need to be the one that understands. And maybe in the future, she or he will understand, because they will feel the urge to say to someone that has less experience, say, I know what you're talking about.
to say to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
when I was little,
Yeah, exactly.
and then we remember what our parents said. So I try to not say that too much because it used to upset me very
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
upset them too.
Yeah.
So try not
Not to say,
that.
yeah, exactly. We say once, twice, and then all of a sudden, okay, now one day you will get it. You already heard, so now it will come your time to do it. So it's the same thing here. When we hear Jesus or any saying that might to some degree sound outrageous or sound out there, it might be interesting. It might be natural for us to say, this is not true as our first response. But then we have to step back and say, okay, is this really not true? How can I see this from a different perspective and analyze it from a different point of view so that I might be able to understand what is being said in a better way? Maybe we can go into a different translation if the text is from a different language, for example. That might help. If we're just strictly looking at a text. If it's from what a person said, we might want to know, why did she come to that point? Why did he come and say this to that situation? What is his or her life experience? What is the backstory behind all this? Was he hurt before? Was she hurt before? So that she is so annoying, or she pushes back so much. So we have to try to look at things from different perspectives before we get to a final judgment. Because that's one of our main problems, is that Jesus says, and not only Jesus, there are other sayings that say the same. Even before Jesus in the Old Testament, right? Do not judge. So it's for us not to fall into the trap of judging and judging others. But our problem, what I find it interesting, is that our main problem is not even just judging. And I also say this quite frequently here. It's not judging others. Is that we judge and we condemn and we say the sentence, so it's done. Because when we judge something, we might come back and then say, okay, I misjudged it. But we usually, when we say something, we already say it like, is it the utmost truth? There's nothing else. I'm never going to think about this anymore, because if he said that, that's what it is, and that's it. And then we condemn it. If we had a hanging rope, we would put the person in the hanging rope and then kill it, because that's it. In these days, with this, how speedy the things are on the internet, that a thing comes to the front right there, and we read it, and we and then we already say, oh, he's guilty, oh, he is not guilty, she is guilty, she is not guilty, and that's it. So what? We never know the stories. We don't even have time to read the stories anymore. We just read just read what one person said. Most of the times, is even the gossip sites that we read. It's not even like a serious site that can explain and show different points of what's going on, for us to try to at least have a minimum knowledge, but not even the minimum knowledge we have. And then we already condemn the person, or we raise the person as if the person is God. And then all of a sudden, the person is God, and then something comes up and pops up and then says that that person did this or that, or someone come and say, oh, he didn't do it, or she didn't do it, but apparently she did it, or apparently he did it, and this person comes and says something about him or about her, and then all of a sudden, that person that was a God, now from God, it went straight down to being Satan. So there's not even middle points anymore. It's either black or white, and that's it. There's nothing in the middle anymore because we don't take the time to think about it, to reflect, to see different perspectives, to go into a deeper understanding of not only what the other one are, but what who we are. And why am I going so fast to judging? Why am I jumping so fast into judging? So when Kardec talks a little about this here, he says a few things that I find to be very, very interesting for us to really reflect upon and pay attention. Spiritism is, as I try to demonstrate what happens to me and what happened to me, and I'm not an example of the best example, I'm just saying what Spiritism does to me. It makes me think. It makes me think. It makes me be a person that some people don't even like because, and I tend to refrain myself from questioning because it gets to a point that I say, okay, if I ask one more question, I'm going to lose the friendship. And I'm not, right? I'm not the kind of, so I stop because I try to, at least within myself, to ask more questions and really get to the bottom of what I'm thinking. Not that I can't, that I do it all the time. No, but that's what Spiritism made me do because it makes me question. And I'm going to show you why Kardec does it. Everybody says, right, that, okay, get the Word of God. And what's the Word of God if not the Bible, right? So you get the Word of God from the Bible, correct? That's what we hear all the time. And then there's nothing wrong there. Every time you get there, you'll find an answer, which I tend to agree with in most parts. But we cannot take the word as a word. We have to have a deep understanding. It's not just the word by the word, it's the understanding of what is being said. We have to set up the context. We have to understand why it was done. We have to understand in the time and in the places. We have to. Kardec says, some of the words used by Jesus appear to be quite extraordinary when compared with his goodness, kindness, and unalterable benevolence. This is very extraordinary. Who is my mother? Jesus asks. But Jesus was the best person that we know based on everything else around. So why did he say that? That's how Kardec starts the text. So he's questioning. He is questioning. But he keeps going. And he says, those who are incredulous never cease to find argument in this fact, alleging that he contradicted himself. So he's telling that people, and I've seen this, that he contradicts himself. However, it is undeniable that his doctrine has its basic principle and foundation stone, the laws of charity and love. If we take the whole of his story, it's love that's at the bottom of it. Charity and taking care of people. That's basically what it is. Well then, he keeps going and asks, is it possible that he would destroy on the one side what he is building on the other side? Is he like working against himself, like doing the good here and on the other side, just destroying whatever he is building here? Why would he do that? So he goes, therefore, we arrive at the following precise conclusion, that if certain propositions made by Jesus are in contradiction, are against what this basic principle is, then, so if what he's saying here is not the same, is it actually the opposite, is destroying what he is building on the other side, then these words attributed, when we attribute something to someone, what we're saying is, Jesus said this, but we don't know if he said this. We're just saying because, oh, I heard that Christina said this. I don't know if she said it. I'm saying that I think that she said because someone told me, right? Which is not the same thing as she telling me, right? That's what Kardec is saying here. Then these words attributed to him have either been wrongly reproduced, they were written in the way that he didn't say, or wrongly understood, they didn't understand correctly, and then they wrote anyways, whatever they understood. Which, by the way, when Simone was talking here, she asked me a question. I heard only the half of it. So I don't know exactly the word that she asked. What was the word? Monad. Okay, so that's what I thought that you asked. But then I looked back in myself and said, why did she ask about monada? Maybe she was asking about manada. The words are similar, but since I didn't hear everything, and I asked Marcos, who was there, and he said, no, I couldn't understand it either. So I was not sure. When I understood monad, I said monad, right? And that's what it is. But if it was manada, it would be heard, which is a different word, a different. I was not sure. I answered what I thought it was. Fortunately, it was correct, but it could have been incorrect, right? So it's the same thing here. It could be wrongly understood. The person heard what Jesus said, and someone was talking in front of him, and Jesus said a word, and he understood it wrongly. Or they were never pronounced by him at all. So Kardec is saying here, look, when we are reading something from Jesus or from the Bible, let's pay attention to it. Because some words might have not been said by him. And we have to be able to try to judge by ourselves with studies or with stuff that say, okay, so this is not. So we have scholars, we have people that study these manuscripts, or the original ones, or the oldest manuscripts from this time. And they compare writings from that one copied from this one. We have a copy from this, and we have a copy from this. We have a Bible here that's called the Jerusalem Bible, which scholars say that's one of the most complete translation that has lots of footnotes explaining passages. And in some of these footnotes, they even say that we kept this paragraph, or we kept these words, but we put it in parentheses or in square parentheses, that because these words are in this manuscript that was found in a certain place, and they are not present in this manuscript. But we kept it here because someone at one point added it. Either was. So the question is, was it added or was it removed? We don't know. So, and because we don't know, we keep them. But we know that it is different. So it is for us to read, understand, and decide what it is the best understanding that we have of it. What Kardec is saying here is, don't take the word just because the word is there. Let's really put ourselves into, why did Jesus ask, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And not judge Jesus by the words, but think about, why is he saying this? Because the problem is not the question. The idea is, what is the whole context of the thing? He knew that his brothers, and to some degree his mother as well, we don't hear much about them. And in some points, there are passages, one passage in John, where it is said, and Kardec marks it out here, he says that John says in one of his chapters that his brothers did not believe in him. So it is said in some other instances. So what Jesus is trying to convey to us, and as we move forward in this chapter, we will talk more about this, and that's why I didn't focus too much about this on this part. I wanted to bring this idea of understanding, of really trying to go deep into something instead of just accepting or not accepting just as the first impact. Because we are going to talk more about the context or about the teaching itself next time. But What Jesus wants for us to understand is, okay, comes my brothers and my mother to see me, but they don't really understand what I'm about. And they only complain, they only do this, they only do that. And then what he says is, okay, these are my brother and my brothers and my mother. But these are my brothers and my mother because we were born at the same family. We had the same kind of kinship. My mother gave me birth. My brothers are brothers either because my father fathered them with my mother or because they came along and we are all together in the same family. But we don't see eye to eye. We don't agree with everything. But I have a lot of people that are around me that I can call brothers and sisters and even mothers, and they are all together with me. So it is a different family. And we have a different family. We have a family where everybody can be together if we want to be together. But if I don't want to be together, the other person will find a family elsewhere. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's my family with the same blood. I can have the family with the same blood be a spiritual family too, a close family, but sometimes it is not. And we know that. So the teaching that Jesus is trying to convey at this point is, okay, look at these people that are around me. They are here because we have a kinship. You are my brothers and my mother and my sisters. Maybe the other ones are not, but that's not what he said. He just asked the question. Who are? Who? And we can go even deeper. Yeah. So who are? He's not saying that they are not, but because we judge so fast, when Jesus asked the question, we are already thinking that, oh, Jesus now is saying that no, he didn't say that. He didn't say that she was not his mother. He's asking a rhetorical question for us to go and say, we're shocked by the question. But then if we think about it, okay. And then he explains it later. My brothers, my mother, and my sister are all those who share God with me. If my mother is that one of those, she is my mother. In that sense, too. If not, she is my mother of earthly life. There's nothing more than this. But for us to get to that conclusion, we really have to, find it deep within ourselves. These understandings of going around and looking from different perspectives and understanding that Jesus is always teaching, is always everything that he does, he's doing to teach us. In the minor things, the small things, or the big things, making us think about, making us understand that that we are all together, that we are going towards a goal, going towards an end, and hopefully, if we do what he I mean, this cover of this book is really interesting. Follow me, right? And then we have Jesus with his hand. So if we decide to follow him in the idea, not in the idea of physically following him, but understanding the message and following the teachings, following the ideas behind it, we will make no exception of people. Everybody will be, every single one of us, even the ant, right, will be with us. Is the ant is part of who I am or who I want to be, who I want to become, is together. We are one. And that's basically what Jesus wants to us to understand in this thing here, is that we are one. Right? And Simone used the idea of, right, we are far away from each other, and she even did this, right? We are far away from each other, but we are touching. We can be far away from each other, but we are touching. Because everything that I do impacts the world. It might impact like minimally, but it impacts the world. It impacts my world first, but it can impact so much more than my simple world. Um, in so many things that we read or that we understand, every little choice that we make, it doesn't matter how big the choice is or how small the choice is, it leads us to a way, through a pathway. It will change our pathway. It will make a slight deviation here, and maybe it's very slight. There's not much, but if we walk a lot, that small deviation will go a long way away from the main road. So every little step that we take, every little thing that we do, chooses our future. So what Jesus is inviting us here is, um, let's think about things before we take like big decisions, and let's try to go into deeper understanding before we judge too harshly other people. And let's understand that if I judge others, um, by understanding that the others are my brothers, my sisters, my mother, my father, that's who I am judging. And if I'm judging, there's judging back as well. And we always want people to understand us. We always want people to understand. But I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing. But is the other person aware of it? Does the other person know? No, usually they don't. They usually don't, because they are not within ourselves. So if they cannot understand why I'm doing, why do I judge others by thinking that I know why they are doing? It may be hard. It may be tough not to do it, but it is what we have to get to understanding, to that understanding. We have to get to that understanding. But more than understanding, we have to get to that point of feeling that, of really feeling that, of feeling that the other is me and I am the other. Because when Jesus says, do to others what you want them to do to you, you are others to me, but I am others to you. So it's all of us. We are all together. That's what Jesus is saying. Who is my mother and my father? My mother and my brothers are those who are with me under the law of God. So that's who we are. That's what we are supposed to be feeling. And with this, finishing tonight, I just want to remind everyone um, of the symposium that's happening in 2 weeks, the 21st of September. We're going to spend the whole Saturday of the 21st in Boston. There will be people from around the United States. There's already about 300 people um, supposed to attend the event, and it's being organized. So there's still time to get the tickets if you're planning to go. The website is right here. If you're online and you're not seeing it, you can just go to spiritisymposium.org. Everything is there with dates and who is going to be there talking. So from 9 to 6 on a Saturday, the 21st of September, we will be there. And with this, let's finish our night here with our final prayer, thanking everyone that was here, thanking you for being so kind, for laughing at my bad jokes. You're very, very kind. And hopefully the message tonight made a difference to everyone, because it certainly makes and made a big difference in me as I'm reading and thinking about it. So let's thank God, thank the good spirits, thank our dear Master Jesus for his teachings, for his patience with all of us. for waiting for us for such a long time. And hopefully, this time we are able, dear Jesus, to follow your message, not only understanding it, but putting it in practice, in action in our daily lives, through our minds, through our words, but most importantly, through our actions. So help us putting this in practice. Help us be together. Help us go back safely at home to meet the ones that we love and that love us, but also to spread the message of love around the world. Not only saying, mentioning, or speaking, but most importantly, by practicing your words. So then, when we do what you asked us to do, to love one another, that's when we are recognized by you and by ourselves as your brother, as your mother, as your sister, as your true disciples. May your love be with us now and forever. So be it. So yeah, thank you once again, and we'll be back to our normal programming after this.